To the resistors, I think there's only 4 or 5 original resistors left in here. They checked out okay. The resistors I took out, most of them actually tested on the low end, which is kind of weird because usually resistors drift up over time. But there were a couple that were at least 50% high, so some that were even double their value. So got those replaced. I have all the original tubes back in except for the broken one. That broken one has the new old stock ST type in, but I put all the other globe tubes back in that I had. And I think I might have an explanation for why there was distortion, but I'm not quite sure what is causing that. So let me just show you. Right now we're sitting at 183 volts, and if I turn this on, you can see the voltage rapidly drops down to about 110 volts.
Correctly, less than $20. Not for someone we supply, not for.
So we definitely have volume now, but I think that distortion is definitely going to be, if not completely caused, but mostly caused by this low voltage. That's at least a third of the voltage gone, so none of the tube boxes are going to be anywhere near what they should be. So I think that's the most likely cause of the distortion. Now, as far as why that's happening, I'm not 100% sure. Could be there's a leaky capacitor in there that's pulling the voltage down. I did replace the one filter on the main B+. There was a 4 microfarad capacitor in the capacitor block. I did replace that with an electrolytic, but all the other original capacitors are still in there. So maybe one of them is a bit leaky pulling it down, or maybe I just got really crappy batteries. I'm going to pull something else in here. The voltage keeps dropping. So we're definitely receiving with, in my opinion, that's sufficient volume. Could be a little bit louder because I do have this turned up pretty high, but I'm not sure what the original output of this thing was.
Discount yourself. Noxiform Deonda is considered to be a first-in-class activator of this innate immunity.
Now we're down to 90. So if I turn it off, it pretty much recovers back to 178. So it'll probably go up a little bit more as the batteries recover. So I'm hoping it's just a leaky capacitor or something. I can't imagine that these radios would have drawn that much current because I am running these off the cheaper zinc type batteries, but back then that's all they would have had. So I'm sure it would have been designed with those in mind. So I definitely think that this radio should not be drawing enough current to pull the batteries down that far. But hopefully, if I figure out why that's happening and fix it, I think that will take care of our distortion. So I'm going to start by replacing the rest of the capacitors, or maybe just a couple that I think might be suspect for drawing that much current. If there's a couple small filter capacitors that are on or near the B+, I might replace those. Because like I said, I already replaced the main 4 microfarad on the B+ line. So hopefully changing capacitors will fix this. If not, then perhaps one of the tubes is shorting or something. And if I don't see any effect by changing out a couple tubes, then I guess my batteries are just crap. So I've decided the issue with this is just really crappy batteries. I looked at the current draw in the manual here, they have the current draw for each of the tubes. Let's pull this up. For some reason, stupid bendy pad, I don't remember what page I'm on. So I have to re-find where I was. Okay, so I have here the plate current for all the tubes. So that adds up to about 14 milliamps there. So what I did was I got a 12K ohm resistor and connected it directly across the 180 volt batteries. And when I did that, the voltage, I measured that it was drawing 9 milliamps and that the voltage dropped down to 110 volts. So if this radio is expected to draw 14 milliamps and a 9 milliamp draw already dropped batteries down to 110 volts, then obviously the 14 milliamps will drop it even further. Now, of course, it's not going to be exactly 14 milliamps because as the plate voltage drops, the tube conductivity will decrease, or the plate current will decrease, but it also depends on the bias, so it's kind of a complicated calculation, but the idea is that if the radio is supposed to draw 14 amps and the batteries can't even provide, or not 14 amps, 14 milliamps, and the batteries can't even provide 9 milliamps, then obviously it's not going to work. So what I did, just for testing purposes, is I hooked up a bunch more 9 volt batteries, so you can see now we're at 228 volts, but if I turn this on,
First time in response to an international crisis,
see it drops down to 123, 120.
She's been there for a long time. My God, look what happened. Don't you know?
Stood in there waiting for him to come.
But you can hear it definitely sounds a lot better. Most of the distortion is gone.
Look at the rush from him. Still growing by 56,000 every year after that.
And of course, the voltage is continuing to drop, so as it drops, the distortion will probably come back.
I don't know. That's for you to determine, you and Mama.
Some music there. Yeah, I think we're dropping too low now, it's not going to work. Let me give the batteries a minute to regain some of their, replenish a little bit. Because when you give them like a little bit of a rest, then turn it back on, it'll slowly drop down again. So we'll give it a little bit of a rest here. You can see them slowly climbing back up. So anyway, I'm pretty confident now that if I get a decent power source, either some functioning batteries or a power supply or something. So these are the batteries that I was using. I know that these are the zinc chloride type, but I didn't think they'd be this crappy. Advanced heavy duty ultralast. What's the company name here? Doesn't even have. Oh, there you go. The company name there. Yeah, not suitable for this purpose, which is weird because I've used, and there goes everything. I've used these batteries before for other battery powered radios, like the early 20s stuff, and they seem to work fine for those. So I'm not sure what the deal is here, unless this is just a crappy batch. I did check. I couldn't find the data sheet for these particular batteries. I checked Energizer's data sheet for theirs to see if they had any like maximum currents or anything. All I found was a bar chart that had that I think it went from like 25 milliamps to like 100 milliamps or something. So apparently that's the expected operating conditions for those, 25 milliamps to 100 milliamps. But for these ones, it can't even put out 9 milliamps without dropping precipitously. So I'm really not sure what the deal is. Okay, see if this sounds a little bit better now that these batteries have rested for a minute. We're sitting at 227. it's dropping too fast, So that seems to be the most pressing issue at the moment. As you can see, we were able to tune in several stations now. And when we first turned it on, there was much less distortion. You could hear pretty clearly what they were saying. The first time when I first turned the camera on, this time it just dropped too fast. But when I first turned the camera on this time, turned it on, you could pretty clearly hear what they were saying. So I'm pretty confident that the distortion issues are related to these batteries not providing anywhere near enough voltage or near enough current for this to run. So I think the next step here is going to be looking into either getting different batteries or a power supply. Because we can't really do any more diagnosis, like if this thing has other issues, we can't even run it for long enough to find out. So anyway, I really think that this is going to be okay. Once we get a proper power source. The antenna I have on here is just a real short thing, goes from here maybe 3-4 feet that way, so not a real big antenna, but I don't think the reception is too bad when the batteries are. And again, once we get the proper 180 volts, because even when I turned it on the first time, ABC it was down at like 130 or something, so that's still not going to be optimal, the optimal performance region for this. So in the meantime, I'll probably get back to working on the hinges somewhere on the bottom until I get figured out what I want to do about the power supply issue. So, oh well.
Rotate around his perspective. When he sees God properly and views himself rightly.
Yeah, that doesn't sound too bad. Yeah, you can hear the distortion coming back in now though, as it keeps dropping.
Workshops to get the word out. The workshop will benefit beginners who want to generate monthly income trading the financial markets.
think that play by Chris Jules earlier on, that defensive play, created a shift in momentum for NOU offense. So we're going to talk
Near the voltage come up a little bit. This is a stronger station, so I'm actually not sure if this has ABC. So usually when it's a stronger station, the ABC will cut the gain down, but this one not even had ABC. So it might be not making any sense there. It definitely looks that way though, because when there's no signal. Oh, now it's going up again anyway. Yeah, now it went down. I have no idea what it's doing. Voltage is all over the place.
Butler, by the way, number one, the guy who was in coverage right there, that is the brother. The Main Street aunt, and as I said earlier, this program is about, for, and regarding veterans.
So anyway, I'm pretty convinced that this is not a capacitor problem. I did not change any more capacitors, but I did hook up the radio with no tubes in it and turn it on, and there was minimal to no voltage drop. So definitely not worried about a leaky capacitor. And like I said, if the expected current is over 14 milliamps and the batteries came in and put out 9, that's definitely not a cause for me to worry about a short. That's just the expected draw is more than the batteries can put out. So then we have to stupid meter. Even if you're using it, it turns itself off. So if you leave it on one setting for too long, it'll turn on and turn itself off. So it beeped once, the next time it beeps, it'll turn off, even if you're in the middle of using it. That's a pretty stupid thing. So anyway, power supply issues. So there's more evidence that the problem is the batteries. I load tested each individual 45 volt pack that I've made, except for the special one. I tested the 3 just stacked to 9 volts, and 2 of them I just used the same 12 k ohm resistor. Two of them stayed at 41 volts, while the other one dropped down to like 30 volts. So after doing some investigation on that, I decided that this particular cell was defective, and after replacing it, that one now stays at 41 volts. Now if I turn this on, you can see now we're staying at around 126 instead of dropping to the 90 or 80 that we were at before. Still some distortion there.
Where's your love in question, for example, what we really truly believe? Sometimes, for example, it's the Father and of the Son.
Quite a bit of static on that one. Doesn't sound as terrible as it did. Let's do an experiment. See if we disconnect. So that's disconnecting the center tap of the special battery. So when you do that, I think that relieves the forced tube bias. The tube bias can float a little bit more at once, and when you do that, it allows the bias to float to a little bit more appropriate region for this low B+, so that's why some of this distortion goes away. And you're still dropping pretty good there, now we're down at 103.
Not only that, when you work with him and you talk with him,
Tight out there at this point. He's trying to get some new operate. Defensive coordinator Andy Thompson.
So I don't think there's still some issues with the batteries. That one did help somewhat, not as much as I was hoping it would though. So I think I'm going to spend a little bit more time playing around with those batteries and see if I can find some more glaring issues there. Because I did actually look up the specifications. They were actually right here in the book. Let me show you. So you can see that the expected B battery current is 18 milliamps, and it does actually have a VC, so I was right on that guess. Anyway, what I was going to say was I checked the specifications for the other kind of tube radios, or not the radios themselves, but the tubes used in the other tube radios. I've run off similar batteries, and the current draw seems to be the same. Like these tubes are taking, if you average it out, it's probably about, a little over 2 milliamps per tube, because some of them take like, I think 2.5 or 3, and some of them take like 0.2 from the B+. So it probably averages out, somewhere around 2 to 3. And the UX201A tubes that a lot of the early 20s radios used, they also take about 2.5 milliamps plate current. So now again, there are more tubes in here than in there, but I think the most I've powered off there is like 5 UX201A tubes I powered off these batteries, and it didn't have any issues with distortion or low voltage there. But then again, this does has a couple more tubes than those do, but I'm still pretty convinced that something's not quite right with the batteries yet. So I'm going to spend some more time playing with that. But we are making some progress, and this is just more reinforcement of my suspicion that it is the batteries at fault. Alright, we are getting closer now. Get off that before I get a copyright strike. You can see our voltage is much closer to what it should be now, 149. Still low, but functional.
A free bottle to put to the test. The debate is over. It's not fish oil or krill.
Anyway, it's lived on though. I've talked way more about it.
Or the increased prices, and so that's why you need to call and look. Although you're on the plan and you liked it, and you want to stick with that carrier, it may be in your.
So even though we're, you know, this is 150, so we're 30 volts low.
Sister-in-law was talking to me and
Still sounds fine to me, I think.
And she was saying,
I can't really hear any distortion in the output now.
I think what I have is fine. And I said to her, well, you may not know if that's right or not. Because I was asking you that before. What if somebody just thinks, well, I'll just keep what I have?
Well, if you're on a Medicare supplement, that may be a place where you stay, but you need to look at your prescription. If you have a Medicare supplement plan.
The line, you'll get about 3, maybe 4 yards.
Brian Barry came up.
That, regardless, is the story of what happens when you proclaim.
Take a photo. See, show her how you used to do concerts.
We're going crowd surfing. Really, they have found a running game.
Okay, we don't play too much before I get a copyright strike. So this sounds pretty good to me. I might play around with the batteries a little bit more just to see if I can get closer to the 180 we're supposed to have. But the radio seems to be working fine on the 150 or the one. I don't know what it dropped down to. I think it dropped down to close to almost 140. The radio seemed fine to operate there, so maybe I'll play around with the batteries a little bit more. But overall, I think this is going to be functional for now. So definitely going to spend some more time working on the hinges down here. And I'm not sure how long the batteries will last under this draw. They do pop back up to at about 180, so I don't think we're depleting that much out of them. I think that there's still a high resistance point somewhere in the string. Because I think what was happening was the faulty batteries. I think I found 3 faulty batteries in total. 2 or 3. I think that high resistance was dropping the voltage down. So even though the batteries weren't, being depleted, the 2 or 3 cells that had a fault or something in them were creating a high resistance point. And as the radio ran more and more, that resistance probably got a little bit warm and increased. So I think that was the cause of the incredible voltage drop we had before. Now that I've replaced those cells, we're still getting some voltage drop, but it's nowhere near what it was. And like I said, there might still be 1 or 2 cells that have a problem. So I'm not sure if it would be worth to try and find them or not. But anyway, I am pretty satisfied with this performance. It sounds perfectly fine to me. Gets lots of stations, even with this tiny little antenna. And that is the only antenna that this thing has. It doesn't have a built-in loop or anything like a lot of the other radios do. So it probably would even work without this. I have a lot of these early 30s RCA radios don't have built-in antennas. I'm not sure why. A lot of their 20s radios did, at least the console ones did. Even the portable ones did too. The 26, the radio 26 and 24 had built-in antennas. And for some reason in the early 30s they stopped doing that, and then in the later 30s they started doing it again, having built-in loop antennas. So you can use these radios without an antenna sometimes. Just the antenna coil that's connected to the oscillator is sometimes enough to pick up some stations, but it's never going to be as good as an actual antenna or the radios that have the built-in loop antennas. So you can pick up a couple of stations that way, but it's better to have an actual antenna hooked up to these ones without the antenna. So without the antenna built in. So anyway, sounds good to me. Let's work on getting some more hinges installed. Okay, so as you can see, I've got most of the hinges installed along the bottom. I drilled the hole for this one, but I ran out of screws to put it in. So I have to get more screws. I have to get a tap so I can drill and tap these holes, extra holes here. Tap the holes in that metal backplate there, so when I screw in, they'll be screwing into the metal there. I have to get better batteries and redo the batteries. That setup's kind of a mess right now. So I shall have to do that, but
just couple.
Award-winning publications such as Arizona Business and Ranking Arizona Magazine. Stay informed with all your business, real estate, travel,
Pons Patch Large. Salon Pons is powerful, FDA approved to relieve debilitating moderate pain, yet not addictive and gentle on the body.
So I definitely think that the performance will go up perhaps a little bit with a better battery setup, but for now, that's going to be it for this video. I'll probably have one video on this, finishing up the hardware, and see if we can get rid of some of these scrapes here in the finish. I'll have to reattach these things. Only one pin holding that one on. That one I took off to try and clean up a little bit because it was so rusty. So I think that's going to be it for now. We'll come back to this one more time and finish it up. But we're definitely making good progress. If you remember when I first opened this up, this is basically falling right out of there. There's only that one pin holding it in one corner. And now we've got it securely mounted, and we'll have to finish it up, but it's still very secure as it is now. And we've got it playing, so I'm pretty satisfied with how we're getting so far. Hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching.